Well, good morning, everyone. It is 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the West Coast. My name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Maddie's Human Animal Support Services Pilot Director. So honored as always to be co-hosting this call with Mary Smith and the rest of the Maddie's team. But today we also have another very, very special guest, someone who has become virtually family with me. And by virtually, I mean because we have not met in person yet, but she is one of my best friends on the internet. Geraldine De Silva from San Diego Humane Society is here. Geraldine, two things. One, I know you're going to be kicking us off with the question of the day. So maybe let's start there and then take a little time and tell us a little about yourself.
Thanks, Bobby, and good morning, everyone. It is a sunny day in San Diego. It's 59 degrees, and I hope everyone's cozy and warm wherever you are. So happy Monday. And I'd like to kick it off with the question of the day, which is, if you had one magical power, what would that be? And while you're plugging in your answers, Bobby was asking me to talk a little bit about my background. Well, from my accent, you can obviously say I'm from India. I grew up in India, and really it's been a journey to where I am today, because my first memories in India were, playing with puppies on the street and trying to rescue them from being hit by cars or from just being homeless and hungry. And I've always had a passion for animals, like trying to stop people from mistreating animals, even though there were others who showed that they cared, but you couldn't obviously see that it was love. Anyway, I wasn't in animal welfare until I came to San Diego, but along the way, I lived in Scotland for a while, where I did a lot of volunteer work with people experiencing homelessness and people who were on the street with their dogs in the cold, which is so different from San Diego, where people experience homelessness with their animals. And when I moved to San Diego more than 20 years ago, I started volunteering with an organization called Pause. And that kind of brought my two loves together, which was both people and animals. So now I am the director of community veterinary services at San Diego Humane Society, and I'm doing exactly what I love to do with a fantastic organization which has a vision to truly make a change in animal welfare. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Geraldine. It looks like you've picked quite a question today because our chat is so full with some amazing responses. I'm seeing teleportation a lot, but what I'd love to know is, like, Leah, like, where would you go from DAS? You're already in one of the coolest places ever. Anywhere else that you would go? And Tracy wants to talk to animals. Mary, you see any other good ones in the chat?
I see laser beams that shoot from my eyes that immediately spayed outdoor cats. I like that.
Amazing.
That was Kelly Eves.
Well, these are awesome. Thank you all so much for joining in. And Geraldine, I'm going to toss it over to you to keep the agenda going.
Okay, fantastic. Well, for anyone joining, the question of the day was, if you had one magical power, what would that be? So if you would like to continue plugging that into the chat, please go ahead. But now I'm so happy to open it up to the super fantastic Mary Smith from Maddie's Fund to share her Monday motivation with us.
Geraldine, thank you so much. That is so kind of you. So, it's funny. Somebody said in there, I think Tracy said from Dogtown SA, talk to animals. And I was thinking, wow, don't I already talk to animals? I'm sure I already do. So here's what happened this weekend. On Saturday, I took my two dogs, the two tawny sisters. One is a terrier, about 14 pounds, and the other is a pug mix. And I took them on my 4-mile forced walk. And at a certain point in the walk, it's like I am dragging close to 35 or 40 pounds. They wanted to stop. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to walk. There was a constant battle of wills. I mean, it was really awful. I got home and I said to my husband, I really need to get some dogs that actually want to walk with me. This is horrible. And I was really in a state over it. And then I sort of calmed down, and then I started to think about it, and I realized a couple things. First of all, I've been taking my dogs on the exact same walk for probably 2 weeks. So they had probably smelled everything, peed on everything, done everything that they would normally do over and over and over. And they were bored, and they wanted to stop more or do something, but they were bored. And so thinking about them being bored and thinking about what their needs were, and then thinking about what I wanted to do, and thinking about the fact that maybe I don't have to take them on a 4-mile forced march every morning, but I could break it up over the course of a day. So armed with this new realization, on Sunday, I took them on a different walk and I let them stop. So usually what happens is I can do a mile with the dogs at about 20 minutes. And this time, the first mile was at 28 minutes because I let them stop pretty much every time they wanted. Because there was a certain point where the dogs are kind of walking next to me and ahead of me. And then there's a certain point where it shifts and they're behind me. And then there's the point at which they walk 1 step at a time, all 4 legs coming down as though they were walking with a ton of bricks. So it was successful for them, not so much for me, but we then compromised on mile 2. By mile 3, we had certain rhythm. And then over the course of the day, we walked some more. But what is all of this telling you? Well, one, it tells you that I'm a pretty terrible dog person. And I take my dogs on forced marches. Oftentimes I'm dragging them. So, I mean, there's all of that normal stuff. But here's something else that I learned. And it was sort of a lesson in what does it mean to be of service. We talk about service all the time. If you guys had listened to Dr. Blackwell last week, you would definitely know what it means to be someone who's engaged in public service. But we talk about the communities we serve. Well, here are my dogs. Being of service to my dogs meant I had to put their needs before my needs. And that's really hard because it's a whole lot easier for me to justify my needs than it is to justify the needs of my dogs. They should just want it because I want it. Do we end up saying that to the communities that where our shelters and rescue organizations are located? That people should just want what we have to give them because we're giving it to them? It doesn't work with dogs, and I don't really think it works with people. So I guess what I'm saying this morning is that I have a lot more to learn from the dogs in my lives. And if I try to be open to what they want, the end result may not be anything that I had anticipated, but it still might be a good end result. But I have to be willing to let go of my own preconceived ideas about what I think, how my day should start, or what my health looks like, or any number of things, right? I mean, I get kind of fixated on it. So there was an article this Sunday in the Washington Post, and it was an article all about PETA and the work that PETA is doing to save dogs who are chained up. And it's a pretty horrific article. It definitely presents PETA in a very, very positive light. Good for them, good for them. But what it also does is present the people who are attached to those dogs who are chained in a very, very negative light. And I get it. We deal with this stuff all the time. And it's easy for me to sit in a room with dinosaurs above my head and talk about the fact that we need to really consider people and animals at the same level. We need to work on addressing the needs, wants, and desires of both ends of the leash. And it's hard when what happens on one end of the leash seems so egregious to us. And yet, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Jim Tedford says we're animal people and we can change the world. But if we really want to change the world, we have to do things differently. So with that, I'm out. Geraldine, Bobby, thank you so much. Have a great week, you guys. I know we're going to be back next Monday, and then it's holiday time.
Thank you, Mary. As always, very inspiring. So now it's time for some national updates. So I'd like to open it up to all our national orgs to please share if there are any updates.
Good morning. This is Jamie, the Maddie's Haas project manager. And I have a couple updates for you this morning. First of all, job alikes. We have a few new job alikes that are opening. They're really great spaces and times for you to just talk with other people doing the exact same work that you're doing. So I'm going to share that link in the chat so that you can find one for you or your staff that might make the most sense. And then second, if your organization is not signed up to be a Haas partner organization, please do so. There's an assessment to fill out. You'll join our Shelter Animals Count Coalition, and you'll really be a part of this project to help us move things forward and tell us exactly what we need to produce so that you all have the tools that you need to do this work. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jamie.
Good morning, Chelsea at Petco Love. We have, if you've not seen it, we've announced a pledge to give 1 million vaccines parvo, distemper, panluke to community-owned pets. So not shelter pets, but community-owned pets. We are going to administer those. The intent is to administer those through the animal welfare organizations. We started with a small list of invited orgs that we've today surpassed 250,000 vaccines that we've given out. On December 1st, we're going to open it to all organizations who are interested in participating. So please keep an eye on that, and we can hook your organization up with free vaccinations to administer to public pets. Additionally, we are offering a $3 stipend for every vaccine you administer. So that's it for me.
Hey guys, it's Bethany from Best Friends. It's hard to follow those updates. We are excited to let everyone know we launched the Data Explorer late last week. And so this is known data from just over 3,300 brick and mortar shelters across the country from our 2020 national data set. And it allows you to look at data nationally by state. You can filter all the way down to the county level. We do not call out individual organizations. You can only go to the county level. And it lets you know intake, primary and sub intake types, and outcome information for shelters in those jurisdictions. So I will pop the link in the chat. Also, you guys can, if you sign the terms and conditions, provide your email, you can export up to 4 reports per day from that tool. So you can take the data and stick it in an Excel file if you're a data nerd and play with it after the fact. Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Chelsea. Thanks, Bethany. And Bethany, is this the last week for people to sign up for the Best Friends Conference for submissions?
Yes. So I will grab that link too. You can submit, I want to say through Friday of this week. Again, guys, we want all sorts of speakers, all sorts of positions, first-time speakers, experienced speakers. I'll share that I presented in person for the first time since the pandemic a couple of weeks ago. And I've been presenting for years in front of very large audiences, and I totally bombed it because I was so nervous. I hadn't spoken in front of people in the flesh in so long. So all these conferences, as we go back in person, everybody's going to be the same way. So if you're a first-time speaker, especially, we totally encourage you just to submit a topic. We want to fill our docket with first-time speakers.
Thanks, Bethany. And a shout out to Kelly out in Dallas saying that they've had 4 free vaccine clinics the last 4 weeks. And so thank you again to Petco Love for always sharing the love for pets and people.
Hey, I have a question for Bethany, if possible.
Sure.
You bet.
Hey, where do you get the data that you're putting in these reports?
Oh yeah, great question. So the data is sourced several different ways. A bulk of it comes through our network partners. So if you're a network partner organization and you're part of our coalition in SAC, we source data that way. We also source data that's submitted directly to us through things like our grantees, data that we get from state files, like we can FOIA the entire state of Illinois since they have mandatory shelter reporting, and directly from organizations' websites. So kind of a menagerie of ways. Great question, Jennifer.
If there's an issue with the data, who do we contact? Because I know for our shelter, it's really not accurate for what we have. So I don't know where it came from. So I don't know who it is that we talk to.
Totally. I'll stick my email in the chat, Jennifer, and we can connect offline on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Well, if there are no other updates, then we'd like to get on with the agenda for the day. And our first agenda item for the day is the American Association of Pet Parents, which is a brand new nonprofit, which is dedicated to helping keep pets in their homes and also at the same time honoring the human-animal bond. So I'd like to hand it over to Tom, Caroline, and Courtney so they can tell us about the great work they're doing.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Tom Van Winkle. I am the CEO of the Hinsdale Humane Society, which is just outside of Chicago, as well as the CEO and I guess founder of the American Association of Pet Parents. I'm going to speak just for a few seconds here about kind of how the background, how we got started, and then I turn over to Caroline and Courtney to pick it up from there. First thing I want to say is that, I look at this association as running in parallel to all the work that's being done here with American Pets Alive and Haas and all the great work being done by shelter groups. The focus of the American Association of Pet Parents is focusing on, regardless of where a family were to acquire their pet, because we know that so many people get their pets from other places, that we're looking at we started this association to look at all pets. So if we, I guess we should do introductions here first, as I rip my headset off here. So we're gonna go to slide 2 there real quick. I think, Caroline, I think you're driving, thank you. I'm Tom. Courtney Wennerstrom is the Director of Content, and Caroline Laxton is our Director of Strategic Initiatives and Life-Saving Programs. Let's go to slide 3. I guess I should follow the slides instead of going off topic here. This is our mission: keep pets healthy and happy. And you can read that there. And the vision is to be the most trusted source of pet information in the diverse, supportive community of pet parents. So we use pet parents, again, regardless of where they receive their pets from. If you want to move to the next one, please. So this is what we do. We're basically the way I started this is kind of basing this model off the AARP, and looking at many of the photos of people on the call. I don't know if many of you have experienced the AARP yet. One day you will. When I was magically turned 50 years old, they found me. I don't know how they do it, but they know exactly when I turned 50, and I was given an invitation to join the AARP. And while there are many jokes abound about how old I am, the truth is they are a trusted source for information as you get older in life, and if you want to stay active and you want to do new hobbies and do things and get good information and save money on things that they can bring to you for different services and products. So that's kind of the idea of AAPP, is the same type of model. Is we are not looking to reinvent the wheel. We aren't looking to be the experts on everything. We want to find those experts, many of whom are on this call today, and have wonderful information on your guys' websites, wonderful information you're giving out to your community. But we're trying to get that to the greater population of pet owners who may have gotten their pet through the pet store or the breeder or just their friend next door or whatever, and they may not be aware of all the great resources in the rescue community because they didn't go through our community. So I know that there are many people in my own community that will say, hey, look on our website, we have some great information, and they have no idea we even exist. So the association is trying to find that expert information, partner up with and collaborate with those to bring this information to us, to our pet parents, and provide that in the most useful way possible. So if you want to go to the next one. So now I'm going to turn this over to Courtney Wennerstrom. Courtney, I'll let her introduce herself, as she is our Director of Content and our lead writer. One of the most important things that I felt when we started this was having a way to engage with our customers, engage with our pet parents, and having someone who can do that is very important. So Courtney is that person. And so I'm going to go ahead and let Courtney take it over and tell you a little bit about the content we have on our website.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone so much for letting us share with you today. So as Tom was mentioning, as animal welfare professionals, we know that some of our key messaging too often slips through the proverbial cracks, no matter how many times we try to tell pet parents something. But it's, not everyone associates shelters or major animal welfare organizations with the resources they need for their pets. And so the AAPP is a nonprofit, And we really try to meet the general public where they are, both metaphorically and literally on the internet. And what we mean by that is in our research, we found that pet parents most want to know about three things: pet behavior, health, and nutrition. So they're often always looking for that information. And that's one way that we can meet them in the middle, is by giving them that information. And as we know, not all information is created equally. There are a lot of resources that with tips and tricks for pets that are based on outdated methodologies or blatant misinformation. And so our vision is to be the #1 place where pet parents find expert, reliable, trustworthy resources, and this will help increase pet retention and enhance the overall well-being of pets across the country. But that cool part is that once we have them there, right? We have them there for the things they're interested in. We have their attention and we answer their questions well. We can then give them some of the important, relevant messaging that animal welfare professionals, our community, are trying to get out. That can be anything like from ways to support community cats. So do not kidnap the kittens, as we all know, to explanations of why shelters and rescues should be the last rather than the first resort when anyone finds a lost pet, to concrete steps to take if anyone sees animal abuse, to more information about why pets ought to be considered family members across all social programs, and all of the many things that you're thinking in your heads right now, all of your important messaging. So to that end, we have articles on pet health, nutrition, and behavior. This is what brings pet parents to our sites so that we can then wow them with new theories and insights on the human-animal bond, and also keep them up to date on all the information they need. I have a blog space called Courtney's Corner, and there's a lot of guest bloggers there. And we do everything from book, film, and television reviews on shows or movies about the human-animal bond. We share personal stories of how pets have saved and enhanced our lives, because we really believe in the power of the human-animal bond, and we know it can change the world. I have an entire section called Voices in Animal Welfare, and this is a space to really translate animal welfare issues for a wider audience of animal lovers who often are well-meaning but do not really understand what animal welfare professionals are up against in saving lives. So we publish things like Kristen Hassan's blog entitled The Problem with Pit Bulls as aggregated content to encourage them to advocate with us. And we have a whole section on this. And we're so excited, we have a brand new podcast called The Pedestal on the human-animal bond. And we just launched the first episode, which is about a new bill called the Paws Off Act, which is intended to get warning labels on all products containing xylitol, because xylitol poisoning in dogs is such a common thing. So that's a really cool platform that we have as well. And the whole point of all of this is really to kind of ask this question these questions that I think seem sort of naive, but I know everybody on this call understands, which is, how powerful is the human-animal bond anyway? I really think it's powerful enough to sort of help unite our divided society and really make a difference. If we were to put that love and companionship at the center of major challenges, from social justice to climate change, what could be possible, right? Because if anything can unite us, I do believe it's our mutual love of animals, because there's no political or social divisions between how we love our pets. So we are really here to bring your content, all of your amazing content, to pet parents. So you are invited to contribute blogs, articles, guest appearances on our podcast, anything you can to illuminate the issues that are most important to you, your organization, and your community. Your brilliant new concepts, theories, and programs that help people and pets. You can help us engage pet parents across the country in meaning our mutual life-saving initiatives. And above all, shift cultural perceptions to help include animals as family members in all social programs. So that is really what I try to do. So if you want to participate, please do feel free to reach out to me, and we will find ways for you to contribute some meaningful, awesome content. And now I want to introduce you to Caroline Laxton. She is our Director of Strategic Initiatives and Life-Saving Programs.
Thank you, Courtney. Hey everyone, I'm Caroline. It's so great to see you all this morning. I am super excited to share with you AAPP's new life-saving program, Heart and Home. Now, the mission of Heart and Home is to keep pets healthy and in their loving homes, thus helping to increase save rates, especially in the South and Southeast portions of our country, through a reduction of heartworm positive animals in trainer shelters and an overall decrease in stray intake. Now, Heart and Home will help pet parents in need to keep their pets safe and protected in two critical ways. Now, the first is by providing free heartworm testing, prevention, and when necessary, that life-saving treatment for their pets, along with informational materials about heartworm disease. And number two is by providing a free collar, ID tag, and microchip with lifetime registration, so their pets will have every opportunity to be reunited with them prior to entering a shelter. And I'm not sure if my slides are keeping up. I've had some internet difficulty. There we go. I think they're coming along. All right. So of course, we'll be focusing our efforts on the states with the highest heartworm incidence. And we'll be working in tandem with our shelter partners, and together we'll engage with and assist your communities of focus. So we're going to pilot the program, and starting off with one community, of course, and then expand it to multiple communities and shelters with that ultimate goal of being on a national scale. So Heart and Home is designed to, first and foremost, keep families together like we all are here to do, and to help further our industry's community outreach efforts, with that goal of decreasing the number of heartworm positive dogs, because we all know those are one of the most vulnerable groups in our shelters today, especially in the Southeast, and also to reduce our overall stray intake. And now, drum roll please, I am absolutely thrilled to announce that thanks to Maddie, we will be launching our pilot program next year in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Roll Tide, baby. And we have the privilege of working alongside Jennifer. Jennifer, I don't know if you're on the call, but if you are, give everyone a wave. And the rest of her dedicated team at Tuscaloosa Metro Animal Shelter. So if you want any more information, if you have any questions, please feel free to connect with me. Look forward to chatting with you. Thank you. Tom, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I want to thank it was Bobby who we went through to get set up for this, and Geraldine for having us on today. I will put my email and Courtney's and Caroline's in the chat. I think so you can have them if you want to reach out directly to us with any questions, or we can direct you, obviously, if you'd like to participate and provide us with some of the wonderful resources that you found. Again, we're looking to be kind of that middle person to connect the dots, and we're not looking to be the experts on everything. We need people that are on this call to help us out. So if you don't be shy about reaching out to one of us and just saying you'd like to participate, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much, everybody. And that's it from us.
Thank you so much, Tom and team. I did have one quick question for you. And this is because I've learned so much from my big sis, Sharon Fletcher, just about marketing, communications, and audience. So I think your idea is so brilliant because you are reaching our community in a way that they feel really comfortable. You're talking about AARP versus AAPP. So people are already understanding what you're trying to do. But Tom, can you share a little bit about how you are reaching out to the broader community, and like if you're targeting specific audiences, or how you're getting our messages out to the community?
Sure. So the primary focus right now is through social media. We're using social media and the website as our primary outreach. And then within those groups, we are joining groups and and becoming friends with subgroups, if you will, and infusing our messages and starting engaging through that method. We've also started doing some, I'll call it grassroots, because we know that not everyone social media is not always the most effective way to reach everyone. So we are using some grassroots methods, just flyers, things like that, posting them out at veterinarians' offices, dog groomers, places around. I know Chicago is obviously, because that's where I'm from, that's a big hit for us right now, where you can start out and get that message out. But our next step is we're going to visit with community centers, church groups, areas of, because the lower service areas are where we want to focus a lot of our attention, so we can bring our messages and bring help to these communities, just like everyone else is doing here, just like Dr. Blackwell is doing, and all the great work they're doing. So we're going to do that a little more grassroots, feet on the street, through some of the programming like Caroline is leading, but also trying to partner with social groups that are already in these communities. So again, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We wanted to bring our message along with what they're doing to help the folks out.
Amazing. Thank you, Tom. And I will say in closing, you have built a heck of a team with Courtney and Caroline. So super excited to see the three of you teaming up for this initiative. Caroline, I hope that you can come back in the future and share some of the data from your pilot with your program, if that sounds okay.
I would love to, Bobby. Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thank you three so much for being here. And Geraldine, I'm going to toss it over to you to get our next presenter kicked off.
Thank you. And thanks again, Tom, Caroline, and Courtney. That was fantastic. Well, our next item on the agenda is an extensive survey. So in 2020, Maddie's fund conducted an extensive foster care survey. And this was to gather detailed information about foster programs at animal welfare organizations all over the country. And this survey was actually first conducted in 2018, and it roughly compares changes over the last 2 years. So I'd like to invite Maddie's National Foster Care Specialist, Kelly Doer, to review the results with us and discuss ways that we can optimize our programs.
Thank you so much. I'm here, and also Sheila Segerson is also on this call. She was involved in this study as well. So just in case I miss anything or there's something important, she is here as well. So this study was done earlier this year, and it was meant to assess the changes in 2020. We have done 2 studies, one in 2018 and one in 2020, basically to get a better understanding on how organizations are utilizing foster care. And we asked all organizations we encouraged everyone to respond to the survey. But the information here is primarily focused on brick and mortar shelters. So we also had some wonderful partners who helped us by distributing the survey to all of their email lists, which was really nice. With the results, some organizations responded to both surveys in 2018 and 2020, but we did have some that responded to one or the other. So the organizations were not exactly the same and may account for some of the differences in the responses. The wording for some of the questions was also changed slightly on some of the questions. So the study, we were looking to get information on shelters' intakes and policies, the pets they're sending to foster care, their foster caregivers and their onboarding process, and how the organization views them, and the opinions about foster care of staff and kind of the organization as a whole. So we took out, we focused on the shelters that had brick and mortar shelters. So in 2018, we had 991 responses. In 2020, we had a little bit more at 1,090. The shelters had pretty similar intake distributions. They were mostly had smaller intakes, but some of them were larger shelters as well. So one of the, we found over the years that there are about 7 principles that that foster programs that are really successful are utilizing. And so the guiding principles are these 7. Foster care is a humane and cost-effective and safe alternative to the confinement and stress of kennel housing. Foster is a preferable alternative to in-shelter care for the vast majority of pets. Each pet is treated as an individual with its own set of unique unique set of physical and emotional needs. Foster care is a priority of the organization. Foster cares are celebrated and given tools they need to be successful, including things like help with marketing. Fostering a pet is simple, easy, and accessible, and that there are measurable goals for the program. So these are things that we've found, and they kind of form the basis for the questions in this study. So the exciting part. All right. So the average number of pets who went to foster in 2018 and 2020, there was a significant difference. And we did see more pets going to foster in 2020 than in 2018. The difference was slightly more exaggerated with cats and kittens, which is great. And then we looked at the pets in foster over a typical summer month. So in both cases, the number of pets from 2018 to 2020 did increase, and the number of pets in the shelter for dogs decreased in 2020. What was really cool is that the average number of foster caregivers per organization doubled, basically completely doubled. So we went from an average number of 57 foster caregivers to 2 years later, 119 per organization. And realized, taking into account that the organizations that were responding were a little bit smaller. So some of them had quite a few foster caregivers, hundreds. And this is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. So this is shelters that placed 26% or more of their pets in foster. So in 2018, we had 36%. In 2020, April of 2020, which is like right, when the pandemic was hitting and people were lining up at shelters, they put 53% of shelters had more than 1/4 of their pets in foster homes. But what's really cool to me is that we also took this information in February of 2021 when we were sending out the survey. And although there was a decrease from 2020 to 2021, there is still a significant difference between 2018 and 2021. So the number of pets placed in foster homes and in fosters by shelters has increased since 2018, and it's not necessarily a result of just that pandemic kick that maybe we were all fearing might not mean permanent change. So this one is also the shelters placing 50% or more of their pets in foster homes. The 50% mark is one of the hallmarks of the Haas foster-centric model. And it is really a goal of a lot of the shelters, and especially the pilot shelters for Haas. So in 2018, 16% were placing more than half of their pets in foster homes. In April 2020, 1/3 of shelters were able to do that, which is just incredible. And in February 2021, that number was 21%. So 1 out of 5 shelters were able to place more than half their pets in foster homes, which is very, very, very exciting. We also asked how many people in your organization are allowed to place pets in foster care, because one of those guiding principles is that foster is a priority function of the organization. And what that means is that everyone on the staff is working toward foster the same way that we work toward with adoption. We did not see much of a difference in this measure, maybe a slight shift to more people being able to place, but it was not significant. We also asked questions about foster support. The beige line is the 2018 results, and the purple line is the 2020 results. So we saw increases in a lot of measures of having foster support, such as having clear policies and responsibilities, having a protocol to follow in an emergency. More shelters said that they had them, having a direct way to contact somebody 24 hours a day, having access to support. Foster caregivers are VIPs at our organization. That one went up. and then and also having access to regular training and learning opportunities was also something that increased. And that is pretty exciting because we have found that training fosters is a major factor in retention. So these are a couple of them that decreased. You know, it could be that it's certain organizations that it has to do with the organizations that took the surveys both years. But we had a decrease in organizations that said that they allowed most of their pets to go to foster care. And then also a decrease in the in foster parents that were allowed to manage the adoption process for their foster pet and are encouraged to market their foster pet by taking big pictures and videos and writing stories. This part in particular does concern me a little, because if we're putting more pets in foster, we want to keep those length of stays low and keep those pets moving through the system. This is those 2 second ones, the foster parents being able to manage the adoptions and also having those processes to market pets from foster and keep them keep the length of stay low. Those we really need to focus on in order to for it to work. So and then the last thing was that we actually found that organizations had there was a 9.5% decrease in the number of shelters that had foster programs. And I can think of, you know, a lot of potential reasons for this. You know, again, the shelters were not exactly the same that took the surveys in 2018 and 2020. Really, the silver lining on this was kind of that the most common reason for not having a foster program was that it was difficult to find fosters. And that was kind of exciting to me because that is something we can work with. That is something we have market research on. We can help organizations to be able to recruit more fosters. And one of the most, you know, something we have a lot of information on and can really help with. So moving forward, just 2 things that stood out to me were organizations really need to think about creating an efficient process for marketing and adopting pets from foster homes. Some organizations have a social media group where they can put photos. Some organizations have like a little form that fosters fill in and they can send photos in, and it's a little, you know, bio form so that they can get that information up on their website. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. And I will place in the chat a link to a document that kind of outlines the steps for creating a marketing process for pets from foster care. And also, foster care needs to be a priority for the whole organization. We are putting more pets in foster homes. We need to also be giving the support to the people who are doing it, and kind of starting to think about reallocating support toward foster now that these pets are going in. We're having more pets go into foster. Lastly, we will have, I think, 5 short surveys coming out in the next few months. I'm gonna stop sharing here. 3 of them are about behavior. One is mostly focused on foster, and one is focused on marketing. They are not going to be as long as this. They're going to be pretty short. So if you are able to respond to those, we really, really appreciate it. Sheila, did you have anything you want to add?
You did a great job, Kelly. I'm really excited that we're sharing this results with all of you. I hope that you find it helpful, and just want to share a thanks to Maddie for allowing us to do this survey.
Yes, thank you.
I think there's a question. Sorry, Bobby.
No, after you.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat where someone asked about how can we recruit large breed dog fosters, because that's their biggest need.
It is probably the biggest question out there right now in foster. And it's a great question. I think that taking home a dog who is a big dog is kind of scary for people, especially if they're thinking they need to do it for a really long period of time. So giving those short-term options like a weekend or even a week makes this a lot more doable for a lot of people. It's not as scary to take home a pet for, overnight than it is to take a pet home and have it for, and not know how long you're going to have it. So having those shorter term options and using them. One of the things in Fairfax that was done during the behavioral foster study was a lot of the dogs, they didn't go necessarily into foster and stay there. It was, say, a big, there was a dog who had been there for a little while. They would put it in foster for a week or two, find out about it, get the marketing information, learn what it's like in a home, and then they would bring the animal back to the shelter and do the adoption there if the animal could handle it. And that was helpful because, when there's a smaller number of fosters, you're not, tying one family up for a really long period of time. We were able to, and then when those pets came back into the shelter, we knew what they looked like when they were laying on the couch. We knew, how they acted in a home. And in that way, they were able to be adopted way faster than they would have if they had never been to foster. So really utilizing those short-term options and getting to know them and marketing, I think is the second thing. We need to be, one of the things we found is that the organizations that have the largest foster programs are talking about foster in 30% of their social media posts. So they're talking about foster more than once every single day. They're telling stories about pets in foster. They're telling stories about their foster. And stories are a great tool to make those emotional connections. So in the way that you're talking about them, your community starts to understand that fostering is something that we do. It's not something that weird animal rescue people do. It's something that everyone does in our town, and our neighbor does it. And so it normalizes it and it becomes less scary. And I think in a lot of communities, at least historically, adult dog foster hasn't been a thing. And so getting that just getting through those first few people can be helpful. If you have if you have a dog who goes home with somebody over the weekend, make sure you let everybody know about it and really put those pictures out there, because in that way your volunteers see, what's happening. And then they're like, oh, well, so-and-so did it. Maybe I can do that too.
Thank you, Kelly. Just related to the actual survey process, just because, the model of animal welfare is changing and we're trying to get to know our communities better, and everyone's talking about community engagement and serving the community. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of how you conducted the survey nationally?
I can talk about that. Sure. So this survey was directed at shelters. So it was not for foster caregivers out in the community, but our marketing team at Maddie's Fund has absolutely amazing connections with organizations all over the United States. And they contacted and connected with the ASPCA, the association, Adopt a Pet, Best Friends, Heartspeak, Michelson Found Animals, Petco Love. I think that's all of them. And all of those organizations happily agreed to send out their surveys to the shelters that they connect with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Kelly, I have another question for you. You've really been the person that has helped me bridge the concept. Before doing the work that I'm doing, I was very focused on marketing communications, but you're really the person that made me bridge the concept that foster and marketing should be connected and they shouldn't be separate. And then I think a lot of that falls into what we talk about the work being very transactional and having retention in our fosters, right? Oftentimes people come once, sometimes they adopt that foster and then never come again. Can you give shelters an idea of some strategies they can use to help increase retention, turning that one-time foster into a two-time foster?
Totally. And that's such a great question. So I'll just start with a quick story. During the behavioral foster study, we took home, it was about a period of about a year and a half. We ended up taking home 14 dogs during that time period, and all of them were adopted. we could have had one dog for that whole period. But what happened was, and what Tony and Kristen, what was genius that they did was that a person who took home a big dog, they would market the heck out of that dog. They knew we were going to provide them with content and stories and pictures, and they took that and they marketed the dogs really, really heavily in the community. What that did was wonderful for the dogs because they were able to find their homes faster. But for the fosters, it was like probably the most amazing retention tool ever. Because if you're a foster and they're putting you up on the front page and talking about how wonderful you are and how this dog's doing great in your house, I mean, it makes you feel wonderful, but also you don't get so attached because you don't have a dog for 2 years. You have a dog for a short period of time, and then they're out the door to a happy home. And so I think that is a major one is the marketing of pets who are in foster homes, and all kinds of marketing, not just social media. And I think a lot of the things that they did as well was to kind of to really enable fosters and to teach us how to do marketing on our own as well. So we were able to kind of band together and figure out ways we can help market the pets as well. And
I would add, Mary just typed it in chat, but acknowledging that people's lives change. It's, in my eyes, it's okay that people aren't going to continue fostering. So yes, we want to try to encourage, but understand that I might have adopted a special needs dog and I can't foster anymore, but using that person for other things. So using that, having them still be involved as foster mentors, as volunteers in other areas, so that we're keeping them in the fray, so that when and if their life changes, so that they can foster again, they're still heavily involved with the organization. Thank you for that, Mary.
Thanks, Dr. Segerson. And I saw that the amazing Allison Cardona also put something in the chat regarding removing barriers to foster. Kelly, I'd love to hear from some of these really simple barriers that you've seen that could be removed, these low-hanging fruits from organizations. And another plug, if y'all have not seen Allison Cardona's Candid Conversation, I'm dropping the link in the chat. It is a must watch.
So removing barriers it's incredibly important, especially with getting new fosters, because anytime that you have a barrier, something that makes it more difficult for them to become a foster, you're going to lose people. If you have people sign an application and then they have to wait a few days to hear back, you probably lost a few people in the process. Or if there are questions that are in the foster application that are really sometimes personal, you really want to make it as easy as possible for people to take a pet home. And what we say, ideally, you want people to be able to come in, sign up to foster, and take a pet home that same day. You also want to make sure that you don't involuntarily add barriers, like for people who who maybe aren't able to provide all the supplies for a foster, to have some type of sharing shed, or to be able to give them food to take home with them, and maybe a few toys, so that they can foster and not have it be not let money be a barrier to foster.
Thanks, Kelly.
Can I add one thing there, Bobby?
Of course.
So also recommend thinking about all the different ways that foster caregivers come to you. Kelly talked about recruiting big dog fosters, and for short-term foster, think about whether there's any barriers for your regular volunteers to become short-term fosters. Sometimes it's really challenging. I'm a volunteer who volunteers at a shelter and works with the big dogs. I have certain ones I'm really attached to. I'm a great candidate for short-term foster. But if that process for me to be able to take that foster dog home for an overnight is really, really difficult, we're not helping ourselves by having those barriers there. So barriers in all aspects of how we bring people in are important.
Thanks, Thanks, Sheila. And then Sharon, I saw that you put in the chat, if you don't mind saying it out loud for the folks that are listening in, about broadening sort of your marketing view from not just social media.
Yeah, you know, using ways, if you have a plea, Kelly can talk to this even more deeply, but if you have a plea to reach out to fosters, not using just social media to do it, because you're talking to the people who already follow you, but there could be lots of other people who say, oh gosh, this would be really great. Contact your media, have them talk about it. Instead of only having adoptable dogs on a morning news show, have them, you know, have a dog that or a cat who needs to be fostered. And that would be all of them, most likely. But have them start talking about it. Like Kelly had said, normalizing it. But, you know, there was a group that used their pizza parlor and put flyers on it before the pandemic. It certainly could work now with delivery and through the pandemic. But, you know, putting photos of flyers and saying, dogs that need to be fostered, can you take him home for the weekend? Share your pizza with them, that type of thing.
I feel like if anybody can get us connected with folks like Grubhub and DoorDash, I see Gilberto and Tom Van Winkle on this call. So y'all make those connections and get back to us next week. All right, guys? Sound good?
Got it, Bobby.
Awesome. And then I know that we have the amazing Sarah Aguilar on here, who, for those that don't know, was a big part of the initiative with the Greater Good to recruit thousands and thousands of fosters across the country when the pandemic hit. But Sarah, would you mind saying aloud just what you talked about ditching these barriers that you're putting in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bobby. One of the things that I think we lose sight of is that every average person can care for a pet. You may have pets that have specific needs, but the majority of pets that are in our care in shelters throughout the nation are average pets that we can all take care of. And I think it's really important to treat folks that way, respect them, figure out how to get to yes with them, and eliminate all these artificial barriers that we think help us control the outcome, but really we don't have control over that. So getting a reference check from someone, I'm not writing anybody down on a reference check that's not giving me a good recommendation, so it's kind of useless. Vet checks, home checks, things like that, they just create, they help us feel better, but what they're really doing is limiting options for animals to get out of shelters alive.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And, you know, there's been many times when you just look at sort of the equity of the work, and a lot of folks doing this work because they love it, not how much money they make. You know, many of us have been 2 paychecks away from being unhoused ourselves. So to kind of shift that lens and remember that we've all been in that situation. I've had my personal vet at our animal shelter help me with medical care for pets that I couldn't afford. And so, you know, I have been given a lot of lenience and grace. And so we just hope that y'all can do the same thing for other folks. So Kelly and Dr. Segerson, anything you would like to say in closing?
Yes, just wanted to address really quick this question about ensuring foster caregivers are open to your open adoption policies. I think the best way to do that is to go over it in your training, talk about your philosophy for open adoption. This is the way we do it. Here's the, you know, how, here's what you can, you know,
Hold on.
and the and kind of just have a conversation with them about how to have those conversations with potential adopters. Sheila?
Yeah, and I just addressing that question too, I have experienced this as well. I'm sure many of us have. It's a very frustrating process. And for me, it came down to, yes, going over the training and all that, but then some of these people are still, they know what we want them to do, but they disagree. And so in those situations, it's deciding whether do we still allow this person to foster, recognizing they're not going to foster that many because of their restrictions. It's a really challenging situation because what does that mean for our organization and the perception of the organization? So it's really a decision of whether to gracefully say maybe you're better suited for another organization versus accepting them as they are, which is what we tended to do. But frustrating for sure.
Tom, Sheila, Caroline, Courtney, Kelly, thank you all so much. To the amazing Geraldine, chalk that one up. First hour done of this national call. Geraldine, I'm so honored. If y'all could light up the chat with some thank yous for Geraldine, maybe put some heart emojis on the screen as well. Geraldine, I want to toss it to you.
Well, thanks, Bobby, and thanks, everyone. And I sort of missed the connection there for a little bit, but yeah, just want to toss it over to Mary from Maddie's Fund to close us out.
Thanks, Geraldine. Thanks, Bobby. You guys, this has just been an awesome session. And Sheila, Kelly, thank you. It was awesome to hear about foster care and how much more we can do. And I'm kind of loving the whole AA P squared of American Association of Pet Parents. Thank you guys so much for being here. And most of all, I really just want to say thanks to Maddie. Bye, everybody.